Hey, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get started. People feel free to continue grabbing food and stuff. I just wanted to kick it off with a quick welcome. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Rika Rosario. I'm the president of AIGA DC. And I'm super stoked about this event today. Actually, two events today. But before we get started, a couple of thank yous are in order. So first and foremost, thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to come here and join us for this really cool conversation. Also, big thanks to Capital One and the National Building Museum, our presenting partners. They support our chapter throughout the year, in addition to our sustaining partners, including Deloitte Digital, Chief, and big thanks to Scott, Chief, Steve, for hosting us today and feeding us. That's always a plus. Gensler, Aquent, Jumbie Industries, Getz, MacLab, and the Corcoran. So one of the reasons we're here today is to support our Design Continuum Fund. This is something that our chapter is super proud of. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it is a scholarship initiative and endowment. So essentially, we have the opportunity, it took a while, but we have an opportunity to give back to our community by financially supporting undergrads and graduate students in the DC area. So to date, we've raised $88,000, right? And yeah, yay. And we're super stoked that we finally officially created an endowment for this. So this scholarship and initiative will, go into perpetuity. To date, we've been able to award 13 recipients. Some of them are here with us today. If you're a recipient, please say hi to everyone. I'm looking at Janae right now. She's right here. She's one of our recipients. Yay. And our 2016-2017 recipients are Karima Murphy, and Aurora Cologne. So if you're interested in either applying for the scholarship, applications are actually open right now, or donating and supporting a student or a community, please go ahead and check out givecontinuum.org. And also, where's Diane? Diane Holton, who's over here, is the Design Continuum Fund Director. She's a board member and is also the event coordinator for this particular event and tonight's event as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Diane, and any other board member who's here today. Actually, board members, can you stand up and say hi? They're so shy. There we go. So we have Steve Foltz, our VP, Lauren Emirates, Kim Arias, Meg Keen, and Cass Hanlon. Diane. Anyone else? Did I miss anyone? Okay, cool. Scholarship is online. One more thing, feel free to connect with us on social media. Twitter handles, Instagram, and Facebook are all here. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to John and his panel. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Let's start at the very end over there. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jamielyn Smith. I'm a senior graphic designer at 3Spot. We're an independent digital agency that works mostly with forward-thinking nonprofits, foundations, and organizations.
Hi, I'm Ellen. I'm an art director at Made by We. I also used to work here, so this is hello to every chief person. But Made by We works with nonprofits and social enterprises, and I do design, project management, and a bit of development, and all that fun stuff.
Will you share there?
We'll share? Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Ian Hamilton. I'm a freelance designer and developer, and so since I work for myself, I do kind of a little bit of everything.
Hi, I'm John Maeda, and I just arrived on the airplane. And I had this moment. Do you know that? What is that game, Tetris or Jewels, where the jewels fall and everything? I was able to see the young man there in the blue shirt with a perfect row. See the row between me and him? And then this gentleman here, what is your name?
My name?
Yeah.
Christian.
Christian broke the row. So I was gonna bring him all the way to the front, like in that whole row like in Tetris. But reason why I'm bringing it up is we need your help to make this a good hour of your time. And the best way to make this panel function the best is to fill all the seats in the front. Now, why is that? It's because it's a little known fact that who's in drama? Who's ever done drama? Drama, dancing, right? If it's full in the front, there's energy, right? But if everyone's in the back, there's no energy. Now, in a normal world, you'd pay $10,000 for that seat right there. And maybe $9,000 right there. Thank you. Ooh, a $9,000. That's an $8,000 seat. There are two $9,000 seats, two $10,000 seats. There we go. Now we're filling it. Upgrades there. Right over here. There's two right up here. Two right up here. One over there. One over. So on this side, come onto this side. On this side, we have two more over there. Oh, you want to upgrade? Right. There's peanuts, warm peanuts. One right over there. Woman in the red dress right there. Good. Okay, perfect. Thank you for shuffling around. Do you feel it now?
Now it's great.
Feels different, doesn't it? Yeah. Thank you for doing that, by the way. It's a nice gesture on your part because I am glad to get to moderate this panel because this is the kind of panel that in the 90s, when I moderated, nobody would show up because this idea of anything that didn't involve paper was a bad thing if you're in design. Who knows what that means when you're doing the wrong kind of design? You know, like, don't go there. Beware design, you know that, you feel it, right? Your teachers tell you, what are you doing? You're not doing print. Come here, smell the paper. Smell the ink. Do you feel the letter press? Do you feel, feels good. Do you feel that? Do you feel that? Okay, now come and look at posters. Poster, A1 size, 5 color. Wow, you know, and then you go around and you do the blessings of the design thing, and what is this thing called? A computer. No, this computer has no soul. Come to the soul, right? And this idea of code, soulless. It's the machine. Well, that was the 90s. You know, there was a lot of that action going on, and it was kind of uncomfortable, you know. And we talk about inclusion. I think that it's important to be inclusive of these different cultures of design. More recently, a culture of design that loves paper, because that's what many of us experience in our lives, but also loves this other stuff that isn't paper, doesn't have a smell, doesn't leave stuff on your shirt or something where you can say, oh, you're creative. You know, dirty shirt with the ink, I just like did some silk screening, kind of high, feeling, you know, like, oh, cool. But someone getting up off the keyboard, smell the same. There's no ink on their shirt. You know, it's like you look like you just used Microsoft Excel. I can't tell the difference. You know, but inside you know you did something. You know, that's what's happened in the last 20 years. But I've noticed that even in 20 years later, there are people who don't really believe in this coding thing because they believe that things have to be the old way, because the old way is a right way. Who knows people who still think the old way is the right way? Come on, you know, come on, everyone knows them. Yeah, you know them, right? And they don't want you touching computers because they're soulless. But you know they aren't, because we have 3 representative leaders here who are bringing this kind of perspective and are unafraid to be on camera. Chief cameras are all over here. There are all of our chief cameras. The chief cameras are watching us and are willing to be out in the open to say that this coding thing is a real thing in their career. And over in the waiting room, I made a diagram with my body like this. So over here on the right-hand side means you can hack the Linux kernel. Over here on the left-hand side is Bauhaus Forever tattooed on your cheek because you want to show that's like, okay? So, and what occurred is there were people on different sides. I'll have to flip my body, but it looks like this. So it's more like this. So here's Linux kernel over here, and this is Bauhaus over here. And there's 3 gradations of the forbidden space, forbidden territory. And I thought we'd start from the deepest end of the pool to experience that. When I said deepest end, anyone swim here? I didn't learn how to swim till I was in my late 20s, slightly embarrassing. I know, it's a little traumatic. But, when you're holding on to the side of the pool, it's so good. But then you have to come off the side of the pool and you start swimming. And the middle of the pool is the deepest part of the pool. You may die, right? So So where Ian Hamilton is swimming in the middle of the pool. He's not sinking. He's in the deepest part of the pool. So, Ian, how did you get to be swimming in the middle of the pool?
Mostly by accident, I would say. I started out kind of doing design just for fun in high school, and I loved doing everything myself. For a long time, I would never use images because I thought it was cheating, and I would only use vectors. So my websites were very one block of color mostly. But then I decided, like, hey, I want to be able to code things myself, so I just kind of by accident started doing it and seeing what Dreamweaver would spit out and trying to understand what it was doing. And then just kind of just started doing it. And then along the way, I just learned more and more and picked more and more up until one day I kind of found myself in between doing both things.
Now, along the way, did anyone tell you that wasn't design?
Yes. Yes.
Make the face they would make when they told you that.
No. Yeah, well, and so when I started, I was first hired in a design firm because I knew how to code. And my design skills were atrocious. They were absolutely awful. And so most of my work involved taking design that my boss or one of my coworkers had produced and just translating it into code. And so I was seen as the point at which something stopped being design and started being something else.
You know, what happens is when, first of all, Ian, I want to congratulate you on being bold.
Thank you.
Because it's not, you're telling these people, very high quality people here, like, well, actually, when I was doing this, I realized that my design wasn't good enough. Like I was doing all this code, I was figuring this out, but my design wasn't good enough. Now at this moment, the Bauhausian person says, aha! So you do suck as a designer. Because all you do is that digital thing. And then they go off because they already took sushi and walked away. But those who stay are asking, but then what happened after that? So let's pause on that. Let us now go to she has come off the side of the pool. She does not need an inflatable noodle. She's like, I think I'm swimming. And that is Jamielyn Smith over there, right over there. She's come off the edge of the pool. And for some reason, she let go of the side of the pool, even though there's shrimp at the side of the pool, with the cocktail sauce and pineapple drinks and shade, and gazebo. It's like the side of the pool is sweet, like why did you leave the side of the pool?
Well, I'm a web designer. I don't actually write code, but I do use prototyping tools like Webflow or InVision to help get the vision across. And I've just found the need to do that with working closely with developers. I can't just be in my design bubble eating shrimp cocktail. I have to be in the
Don't eat the tail.
Yeah. In order to make sure the design to developer transition is more seamless, I need to be knowledgeable about code.
And Jamielyn, why, while you were eating your shrimp cocktail and you were sitting there and you were in a situation where you had to work and make a living, and there are developers who are like looking at you with your shrimp cocktail, they wanted to communicate with you but didn't know your language. So you came closer to their language. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, why would you do that? Like, why waste your time? Why not just hang out on the side of the pool? Let them come out of the water to come to you. Why did you do that?
I think by necessity, like when I'm in front of clients presenting designs, there normally isn't a developer in the room, so then it kind of falls to me to be able to bridge that gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So who has stepped off the side of the pool yet? Who's feel it. Do you know that? And you did it by necessity, right? Now, for those who didn't leave the side of the pool, it means that they likely have a trust fund or something where they can sit by the pool all they want to. And I will tell you, there are many of the people who can get to do that. There's a lot of people. You'll see them in magazines. You're like, oh my gosh, they're making beautiful print work. Oh my gosh, they're smelling the ink. Oh my gosh, they're kind of dirty. Oh my gosh, they're kind of high. Oh, I'm kind of jealous because they're still living in the Bauhaus because they don't have to make a lot of money. But for those of you who have to eat to survive, must hunt in the pool even though it's chlorinated and you know there is no wildlife in there, but you jump into the pool to be able to communicate, to survive. And Jamielyn is a representative of that willingness to leave the side of the pool, because there are people who've been programmed to stay outside the pool because they believe something is coming someday that will save them. It's called the starving artist syndrome. It is taught by every educational institution in the world, and every movie makes this fantasy a kind of pseudo-reality, which again is not possible unless, again, you can win the lottery, check off the box, but you can't. It's hard. So now going to, swimming, and then should I go back to the side of the pool? Should I go to the deeper inside the pool water? I think I can make it, So that is Ellen Amaral. Ellen, so what? Tell us about your journey from the side of the pool further away from the side.
Yeah, so I would describe myself as aggressively curious. I'll go up to a pregnant woman and just be like, what's going on with your body? Because it's blowing my mind. And so that's kind of how I felt about code. I was lucky enough to work with some people who designed and developed, and I kind of went up to them and I was just like, what are you doing? Because it's blowing my mind. And so I took a course because I tried the book thing. That didn't work. I tried the online courses. That did not work. So I took an actual course with real humans. And while doing that, I also just wouldn't shut up and I wouldn't stop asking questions. And then once I knew kind of the basis, I just forced myself onto projects, just being like, hey, I think you need a developer and you'll take any developer. So how about you take me?
It's like the aliens came. Take me.
Yeah, so I volunteered as tribute a lot. And then I kind of kept going. I would work really closely with developers and learning enough that, I can write a flat HTML site really well. Adding a CMS on top of that is kind of a new step. But, that was the first thing for me, is that I just wouldn't stop asking to be on a project with it. And that's kind of where I am now, I guess. Still demanding to be involved in everything. So,
how many years since you left the side of the pool?
Well, I graduated college, and then 3 months after that, I signed up for the course for front-end development.
Whoa.
So I just I wasn't waiting. Yeah, I just I went full in.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's I didn't take too long eating shrimp cocktail. But yeah, no, it's been good.
Wow. So that was so you didn't spend a lot of time in the starving artist mode.
No, I wanted to be an actor when I was like a kid. I was like, this is destined for me. And then I was like, but I can't be a starving artist. So I thought design, that's where I could exist. Something creative, but, I'm not, being, trying to sell fried chicken on the side of the road. I don't know why I think that's like a job that actors do, but it wasn't for me. And so I thought design, that's got to work somewhat. So yeah, I was always kind of wanted to be in the creative scene, but I didn't want to go down that route.
Interesting. Different beginnings. So I'm just curious in our group over here. By the way, who is Joan? I have a coworker named Joan Rowe, and her sister-in-law is here. I heard maybe. Oh, hey, sister-in-law. How you doing? It's fun to work with Joan. She's intense. Very good. So, in terms of the Jamielyn experience of coming off the edge, you raised your hand before, but who has that Jamielyn feeling? I've left the side of the pool. I want to talk to developers. Who's that? Yes, you. Yeah, you have bubble tea, so I'm really jealous of you. So, what is your name? What is your name? Julia. So Julia, let's see. Let me give you the microphone. So, wow, you have an infinite bag of microphones. So Julia, you left the side of the pool, and you've got what is it tapioca instead, or?
Yep. Yeah, it says a pina colada bubble tea. It's delicious.
Oh my gosh, that's like the Asian version of a caramel macchiato. All right, so you've got that, feeling good, and you left the side of the pool. So what made you leave the side of the pool?
So when I went to college, I wanted to be a biologist, and my mom told me I would starve. So instead, I went to a technology undergraduate program, and that's when we had an opportunity to try out art, design, tech, and education. So I started doing online learning, and that's when I found myself doing a lot of design, because in order for somebody to learn, the information needs to be well communicated and well presented, well visualized, and well planned. And then the more I wanted to do that, the more I found myself I needed to code something. But it was more like front-end development. It wasn't, and eventually I learned Java and, networking and all that stuff, because they made you do that. But the more I found myself, like maybe more attracted towards design and how can we present information better, and so people can understand it better.
So you kind of combine things, and then you discover that you could take that design knowledge and apply it to this thing that isn't on print. It's on the computer. You were not fearful of the computer.
No. I was one of those that try to teach their parents how to use a computer. Or try to put a telephone apart and try to put it back together, but I was never successful.
Digital native, digital breaker. Thank you. Yeah. Have applause for these brave. Yeah. Good. So it's that moment where you want to communicate, and in Jamielyn's case, she's saying, well, I don't code, but I can work in these prototyping tools. What kind of prototyping tools do you use, Jamielyn?
Mostly Envision, which is more of a presentation tool, but you can add some light interactions like hover states or jump links and stuff like that. And that's a way to make designs a little bit more real. And also Webflow, which is built on Bootstrap's framework. So you can build a website visually, so you just drag and drop divs and different components, and then you can stylize them and also set responsive breakpoints.
So who is brand new to some of these words that are being said here? Thank you. So these words are words no different than the history of design. You know, like design history, there's like the Bauhaus, and there's Moholy-Nagy, and there's like Malevich, and there's Bayer. All happen to be white men for some reason, because they forgot everybody else. Oops, sorry for saying that. But there's a lot of Bauhaus women that we just don't talk about. It's a little bit odd, but we're going to change that, I think, in the future, some future. But it's a history that happened over decades. The technology vocabulary changes in years. And like even a word like bootstrap, which is a framework that was put in place by Twitter, is already kind of considered, is it living, is it dying, is it, you know? And it's only like a few years old, technically speaking. So part of the challenge of the technology world is being used to feeling kind of dumb. You know, like, what do you say? And it is tough to be quote unquote dumb, whatever a better word is, behind the times, whatever, because what happens? You feel inadequate. I want you all to know that who people think is the most advanced technology person, always feel inadequate, because I don't know what the heck you're saying to me sometimes. I'll go look at it up on Google now. So if you don't know it, I don't know it. I didn't know it a few years ago too. So give yourself license to be comfortable with not knowing this stuff, because it changes every year. In some cases, it changes every month. And anyone you talk with who thinks they're the expert, you know, they're just like, oh my gosh, digital guru knows everything. They don't know everything. They don't. So be comfortable with that. And then what I liked is when Jamielyn described these tools, whether they be Envision or Balsamic or Framer, you can rattle off at least 200 names. And that group of names keeps on growing. It's the exact same thing as knowing the history of design, which took a lot longer to happen. So I'm talking to myself, by the way. So I'm like, I don't really know. Anyway, so you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's okay to not know, but it's not okay to not be curious. And I loved how the curiosity that is in this group here exists, and to share their curiosity. So now let's go to the deep side of the pool, deep middle of the pool. Now, Ian, you'd mentioned how you basically had Dreamweaver. Who's heard of Dreamweaver? It's like, yeah,
it's
there we go.
It's the best. Everyone loves it.
So can you describe Dreamweaver in a car parlance? Like, is it like a modern car? Is it like a new car, like a Prius? Or what is Dreamweaver?
Dreamweaver is like your dad's Buick.
Yeah,
and it will get you where you're going, and it would have gotten you there in style in the 70s, but not anymore.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah. Can you explain what came before Dreamweaver for some context?
Notepad, not a whole lot. There were some programs that existed to do layout, but they were not great. They were pretty rough. And so really the only option before Dreamweaver was to just write all of your code by hand.
Mm-hmm. So basically you were just typing in the text code, and then you wouldn't see the web page until you forced it to see it?
Yep, until you just refreshed Internet Explorer or Netscape or whatever you happen to be using way back in the day.
Yeah. Feeling a little bit old in here, some of us, huh? Yeah, the young people are like, what is that? What's that called? I wasn't even born then. That happens a lot. Be careful. Okay, so Dreamweaver happens, and suddenly, who gets to make web pages?
Designers get to make web pages. Was the big thing.
Because why couldn't they make web pages before?
Because they couldn't code before.
Uh-huh.
And so now Dreamweaver is doing all the coding for them.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So So now let's pause for a second. I want everyone to acknowledge this moment where the person has left the side of the pool. Like, I ate the shrimp cocktail, I have Bauhaus sheets in my bed, I'm so good, I'm so good, I'm so good. But I gotta make some money to live. So I'm gonna leave this side of the pool, I'm gonna adopt this language that I didn't learn anywhere else except like leaving school and stuff. And now I'm gonna be in a world where I can't hack the Linux kernel. So I'm going to say I don't know how to code, but I can do this. Okay, this is an important step in the evolution of anyone's knowledge, because why does someone have to say that? Like I don't speak Spanish, but I can. Like, why do we say that? Why do we apologize for what we don't know? Why? Anyone know why? Why? It's because there are people who have fun telling you how dumb you are for not knowing something. They're like, oh my gosh, you don't know. You know what that happened? It's like, doesn't know how to code. You know? How's that feel? How's that feel when someone says you can't do something? What is your name? Me? Yeah, how's it feel? Feels awkward. It feels like, oh, I don't like that, right? So, but that again, you want to move forward. So you're going to say like, well, I don't know how to code, but I know how to use this. That's a way to get off the edge of the pool. Okay. But eventually, you can let go of that. You can say, I'm swimming. And when you get to that place, you're even more vulnerable. Because now you feel inside, maybe I'm feeling the bottom of the pool with my feet. Maybe I'm not swimming. And someone says, you're not swimming. And you're like, I'm not swimming, you're right. Back to the side of the pool. But that part is the part that is happening in Jamielyn, I believe. I believe in a year from now, she will remember the moment when she said, well, I don't really code, but because this whole thing about coding is a big spectrum. It's a very broad spectrum. This idea of coding, of design, isn't so black and white anymore, so binary. So if you're making mock-ups in this, or you're, thinking through a feature like this, and then you aren't writing the code, you're doing, in many cases, a more important thing, because you're figuring out what it should do. And I got very excited when Ellen talked about being a project manager, because that is different from design, but it's kind of similar to design. Can you talk about that experience that you've had in that space?
Yeah, so where I work, we're a small team, so everyone kind of has to wear a different hat. And so project managing not only clients, but also developers, it's being able to speak that language, people who understand that language, and then other people who do not understand that language. And I feel like once you kind of dip your toe in the world of development, you can help out not only people who don't know any development, but also kind of have a better relationship with the developers in your life. And I love developers. I date a developer, and I love them. So for me, kind of dipping my toe in every single area I can, I feel like it makes you a better person to collaborate with. It makes the product better. And I think, also just creating an atmosphere where, like, if you have a stupid question, you can ask a stupid question. I think it's important to anybody kind of getting involved in code. But I think in general, I believe that this whole kind of industry should be a gray area. I think that we get our best work in that gray area. It's uncomfortable, but most things that are good in life are kind of a little bit uncomfortable.
Who agrees with that thesis? I think everyone has to. It's just this discovery you make in later life. If you're a younger person, it's harder to feel that because you're working with a rule-based system. But the older you get, you realize how effed up the world really is, and you're like, whoa, no longer black and white, gray, very gray, super gray, gray, gray. Gray. Yeah, very good. And what I think is important is that project managing, product management really involves business as a key factor in making decisions. Does it ever come across your...
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think, in general, I mean, you're in business, I think, especially being like a smaller company, you really have to think about all the different elements because, sometimes we don't have the ability to talk to developer right there and then, but you have to advocate for it. So I think just running a business, I feel like all of those different aspects kind of merge and you kind of have to run with it. And a lot of times it's difficult. I did a project where I did the project management, the UX, the design, the development, and I was coding it in Italy, which is a good place to be coding. And we had this terrible internet access, and I couldn't figure out how to do this thing that I designed. So I'm there, and I'm just crying aggressively in Italy with my little computer, and I have no one to blame but myself because I designed it. But I made it through it, and that website is online. It's up there. But moments like that are totally fine. And in that moment, I did think, I'm so dumb. I cannot do this. And you kind of just have to keep going, because you got, Italian landscapes to see, so you can't be inside coding the entire time. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you're going to cry. This is really depressing now. But, that's okay. And I think just kind of forcing yourself to get really uncomfortable that's how I've been living my life.
Vital. Are there any designers here who deal with the business aspects of their work? Anyone who involve business aspects of the work? The gentleman with the glasses back there, what is your name? Over here, further up.
Ross.
Ross is the name, Ross. Yeah. So you deal with the business aspects as a designer. Yep. So can you talk a bit about why that matters, or why it doesn't matter?
So I'm one of the founders of a small agency. So
then it matters.
Yeah, so it matters so the lights can stay on a bit. So there's a lot of times where we, it's a question of how much do we want to advocate for design versus advocate for sometimes like the client relationship. Like the client has a terrible idea, or how much do we keep the client happy versus advocate for what we want to do or think is best, or things like that. And how much of a pain in the butt do we want to be to this client right now, where we kind of try to balance that. And generally what we try to do is kind of play that role for the designers, like as kind of wearing the project manager hat of like, I get to be the bad guy and the designer gets to be the good guy. We kind of try to good cop, bad cop it a bit to try and account for that.
Well, Ross, when people, so your background is design.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you're doing this business stuff.
Yes.
And then a designer comes up to you and says, Ross, you're such a sellout.
All the time. You're
not doing design. You're just doing this sellout stuff. How does it make you feel?
Not good. I mean, honestly, I think we do try to advocate for the design first, but I think when you are worried about the business aspect, you're keeping one eye on the fact that there's 5 projects behind this one. So if we spend 20 extra hours getting this right, have we devalued our work by giving that extra time? Have we valued it more? And things like that, where it's like we're thinking about so many more things than just the design itself, that sometimes it's hard to know how to balance those things.
Yeah.
Ross, the reason why I didn't mean to single you out for being a sellout, but it's because of the mistaken view of design as being design and business as sellout. Mm-hmm. Because all design is about being a sellout, right. AKA being a profitable entity. So I invite you to the next designer who tells you or thinks you're a sellout to tell them what I have learned over time, which is the Bauhaus was all about selling out, because the Bauhaus was a project of the German Economic Ministry to enable manufacturing to have higher value, to compete with British manufacturing, which in the 1850s, by the way, the 1850s, the British weren't very good at design. And so they created two entities. The Economic Ministry, called the Department of Science and Art, in the 1850s, created the V&A Museum to educate British people about standards of high-quality objects, and also created the Royal College of Art to produce a competitive advantage around British-made things, because they were jealous of the French, who in the 1700s were able to create wares with a much higher margin and higher quality at the same time, and prove that design was good business. So can we have all applause for Ross, the good designer? Okay. So business is a vital aspect of design. Somehow over time, it was taken away from the business. It was taken away by the education system primarily, and it was made into something what we can call pure. The word pure in this case is implying no economic crossover, nothing to sully it with money. But I urge you to look at the history of design. It is about making money. Now, it isn't about like, making money, whatever. Your worst image of like Gordon Gekko, Wall Street, corrupt, whatever. It isn't that view of money. It's just a view of money as a medium. Money as a medium to explore your freedom. Your degree of freedom is proportional to how much funds you have available to you. If you have a large amount of funds, you have bought yourself more freedom. If you have less amount of funds, you are now limited to fewer axes of freedom. And a really good designer finds ways to increase the amount of freedom that they have. Like, everyone know this company called Apple? So Apple was a hugely unprofitable company for most of its time in history, because it was designer focused, meaning that it made things that were perfect but too expensive to buy and too expensive to make. Because they were too expensive to make and too expensive to buy, there was a smaller market and there were lower margins. It wasn't until Tim Cook joined Apple, who brought expertise on logistics to Apple from his role at Compaq. He was able to teach Apple how to make a sufficiently expensive object at an incredibly low price. And in doing so, they were able to take that margin and spend it on designing a high-quality object that was sufficiently desirable but hugely profitable, and has led to its success. And that's just what good design is about. It's about the ability to do that. But the reason why technology is important today, specifically coding is important today, is because there's nothing like the medium of computation. There's nothing like it at all, because it is not behaving in a way that we are used to in this physical world. It's a foreign, alien material. Because if you think about computers 30 years ago and computers now are easily 2 to 3 billion times faster than computers 30 years ago. More powerful. And it's the same price, if not less. Think about it. Think about a car 30 years ago that could go 60 miles per hour. And think about a car 30 years later that goes 60 times, 2 billion times faster. And it's the same price. Does it make sense? It makes no sense at all. But because it makes no sense, something happens. What happens is you can do things that were previously impossible in design. You can scale to millions of people using things. You can produce things for 1 million people with marginal cost close to zero. Let's pause for a second. If I were to make 1 million of these, and I had to sell 1 million of these, I would make more money if I made a lot of them, right? But I would lose some money too by making them. The digital medium is different because I can sell you 1 million of them, and each one of them costs almost nothing to deliver to your phone. That's a whole different mechanics for business. And that's why if you are a designer today, to design for that medium, you need to get closer to what is the representation of that medium. In the same way that my teacher, my typography teacher, would always carry a 50x magnifier in his pocket. Because he'd always want to go look at the serif or something. You know, the fiber, like, come here, look at the fibers. Like, I'm looking at it, it's awesome, fibers. It's talking about the fibers and where they came from, you know, what part of Japan. And so he's talking about the material, knowing it intimately, you know? So the same thing in this era, getting closer to this middle of the pool means that you know what is happening and nobody can lie to you. Because if you're working with a Linux class developer over here, they're going to lie to you. Not because they're bad people, because everybody's lazy. Like Leah, is this your name, Leah? Yeah. So Leah comes to me, I'm like a super duper Linux person, hacker. Leah says, ask me to do something. Like something about, I can do that, but ask me to do something for your project right now that requires code. Anything. Yeah.
Redirect to another page.
Oh, you can't do that. Now what's going to happen?
Do it anyway?
No, you can't do it. It's technically impossible, Leah. It's just impossible. I have to go to lunch now. Thank you, Leah, for that. Thank you. Thank you, Leah, for being brave and being the manager for the day. Thank you. So that can happen, right? Have you ever been to like a car? Who's had a car break? Who owns a car and a car is broken down before, right? Now, if you don't know how to fix a car and you go to the garage, what happens? You get taken for a ride. That's like, well, I think your brakes are sort of like, you know, almost worn out and you might die. You know, and you might need this extra fluid because your car's dying inside and you can't see it. Right? And you're like...
You're looking at me, it hits so close to home.
So you cannot function in that way. But in a case where asking a redirect question, when I tell you that I want to go eat my lunch and I want an hour and a half lunch, and Leah says, well, actually, you know, I read a little about this, I've touched a bit about this, you know, and I think you probably can do it. Then what happens is that this person has to say, busted. So it's got to be an hour-long lunch this time, and I'll put in the extra half hour. The same way that if you were a graphic designer 20 years ago, you know that you have to go on press. Who's been on press before? On press, right? Okay. What happens if you don't go on press?
You miss your deadline and your client's mad.
Right. And then what happens when the printer says you can't do it?
You find another printer.
Thank you. See that? You would go on press because you need to make it happen. And when the printer tells you you can't do it, you can tell them, well, you did it before, Or when I was a student or when I had my own press, I could. So don't lie to me. Insert expletive. I'm sorry. But anyways, you know what I mean? So in this coding world, if you don't understand that, then you are at the mercy of your own lack of knowledge. And I don't know any successful print designer in the last century who did not have an intimate knowledge of the printing process, of the paper selection process, of the ink process. They all lived it. I knew a person from Dai Nippon Printing, the big printing company. He could touch a piece of paper and name the paper. So they were that good. That was code of the era is what I'm saying. And the education system and the museum environment all lives in the old era. And it's always calling out to you, Janae, get away from the computer. Come look at the fibers with me at 50x. You probably get solicitations like that wherever school you're at. Like, come on, let's go look at it. And it's like, oh my gosh, I love it, I love it. But I know that Ian over here, who's close in that deep part of the pool, I'm sure you have moments when you're in that depth of the code and you see things. Am I just guessing that, or?
What kind of things am I
Like
saying?
when you're in the Matrix, basically. And you have the sunglasses on, and it's like dark.
German techno going on there.
And you have the tech, exactly.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, whoa, you know? Like, are there moments where you're in it, where you realize that it's like, this is a different thing. This is not the same as print.
It's definitely not the same as print.
What's
That's
different?
Very true. The medium is completely different. When I first started coding websites for my very first design job, I didn't feel like I knew enough to push back on designers, and they were designing for web like they were designing for print. And the big thing that they were doing was that everything was always a set size. You know, something was going to be 700 pixels wide, and it would never, ever change. And the one thing that I finally had to push back on is we did, I think, 2 different websites where they had designed it with this very beautiful paper deckled edge along the side of the website, and we couldn't have it be any taller than however many pixels the graphic was. And so both of these websites were internal scroll bars, and they were totally terrible. And I eventually had to kind of push back, and I was like, you know, we can do other things besides this. Like we have the ability to scroll the whole page, not just this one part of the page. Why don't we think about how we design websites a little bit differently? And it worked. And I think that was something where, you know, for me, a lot of the value of knowing code is that it allows me to know not only the limitations of what you can do with design, but all the things that you can do with design that you might not naturally want to do, or you might not know that you can do.
So I'm like a designer and say, Ian, that's all fine and great, but I'm not good at math. I don't like math, and this code stuff looks like math. What do you say to that person?
Well, I'm really terrible at math, as anyone will tell you. You can give me 2 numbers and I cannot add them together. But if you like logic, if you can think logically, if you can look at something and break it down to the essence of what that object is. So like, what is a logo? It's just a bunch of shapes. They're a certain color. This one's a circle, that one's a square. And if you can think of something in terms of its component parts, you can at least do front-end development, because that's all that front-end development is. And if you can think logically and you can work with a language that has a very, very limited vocabulary, then you can program, because that's all that programming is.
Yeah, and that's how I got started with front end, because I feel like that's probably one of the easiest ways for designers to kind of get in, because it's kind of, well, it's the front, it's what you're looking at. So that was easy. That was the easiest way for me to get in. And I remember kind of similar when you were saying that a designer comes and they give you something and they can't, and you're like, that's not how the internet works. I once did that with my own design. I had this underline. I really liked it. It looked awesome. And then you kind of move the window and you make it just like a couple pixels smaller, and that it breaks onto 2 lines, and it's destroyed. And it was like in that moment that I realized I was designing for a living, breathing thing, that it was going to have to get smaller. And I had to kind of deal with that. And for me, that was a really interesting way to figure out how to design, knowing that some things it's gonna have to degrade and have to degrade gracefully, and being aware that, okay, you know what, that underline look, unless I'm cool with how it's gonna look at 500 pixels, find a different solution, find a different type of design element that works in place of it. But for me, I found a lot of times I would just find issues with my designs that in development, in code, it didn't translate well. And that was really interesting because it made me a better designer, and I feel like it made me a better designer for developers to work with, because I've never done that underline again. Because I don't want a developer saying, that's not possible. And at the moment, I would be like, yeah, you're right. It's possible, but it's not going to look good soon. And I would do that a lot also with talking about kind of like developers saying no, like, we can't do that. I would go to the developers and I would come and be like, first of all, don't freak out, okay? Everything's okay. I've got a plan. And being able to actually look at kind of a design that you have and have a way that you can build it so that, before that developer maybe shuts you down, you can be like, well, how about this, this, and this? And then it's a conversation. And it's no longer kind of just being like, I'm going to go eat some food. You can stop. Was that I forced a solution on them. And it wasn't always the perfect solution, but it opened up kind of a moment to talk about it.
That was really good. Wasn't that good? Wasn't that good? It was like sushi for the advice column, right? That was really good. I saw nodding like, yeah, I can use that. I can use that. I want to note Jamielyn, and so you can see to this side of the pool over here. I'm not sure if I'm a Linux hacker, but when you see this side, this over here, we didn't have this conversation before, and we're having this conversation in front of everybody. So how are you feeling now about your stepping off the side, and do you want to come further along this side, or do you want to stay there, or do you want to go back, or what are you feeling?
I feel great.
Yay! Okay, good. Very important.
Yeah, I've never been afraid of learning more about coding. Right. I think it's important to have a varied skill set. And personally, I'm interested. I feel like I'm good with my knowledge of coding right now, and I'm looking to learn more about content strategy or user research. So
nice.
Just moving into other pools.
Goes broad. See that? Yes. And then Ellen, let's pass off. Let's close the gate here. Ellen, so where are you feeling on where you are in the pool, or leaving the pool, or flying instead, or going into the ball thing machine?
I'll probably be swimming the rest of my life. I don't think I'm ever going to get off at the other end to join the hacker. But I'd like to join up with Ian maybe. Hang out with him for a little bit. I always kind of like wearing a lot of hats, and I think it's really empowering as well. I think being able to code and design to kind of make what you create into something real. But yeah, I think I'm gonna swim a little farther.
Further.
Yeah, I used to swim in high school, guys, so there's just no telling how far I can go. Yeah, no, I think I'm always inspired by developers and designers, especially designers who can develop. And I've been surrounded by a lot of them. There's some great ones here at Chief. Shout out to Zaid. And I think, just seeing kind of them swimming in that area has always wanted me to go deeper with them than kind of swim back.
Ian, how about you? Where are you going?
I might go towards one side of the pool. So I've gotten to the point now where I have enough languages and I have enough programs like the creative suite and whatever else I'm using that there's a lot to keep track of. And I feel like I have maybe not in the middle of the pool, but that I'm spread out between the kiddie pool, the hot tub, and the pool all over.
Hot tub.
Yeah. So
place.
It's one of those. I'm in a position where I feel like if I really want to become an absolute expert at any of them, maybe something has to go. And I haven't decided, what that would be, or which side of the pool I'm going to go to. But right now, what I'm doing seems to be working pretty well. So I'll probably keep doing it until I have to do something else.
Good. Flexible. Keep your options open. Good. I just realized, so I work with someone named Ashley Axios, who's like a local person, right?
She used to be one of us.
And she was a chief before. So, and we work at this company, Automatic, with 2 T's. It's because the founder's name is Matt. And it's 500 people across 50 countries, and everyone is remote. There's no swank office. It's a beautiful office. It's completely remote. It's completely virtual, and it's a very technical company, a very engineering-driven company. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now is to speak all languages, speak the language of the designer, speak the language of the developer, speak the language of the customer support person, speak the language of the CFO and marketing, and I'm working to unify all of the parts by speaking all these languages. And I just urge anyone who came today, who bothered to sit for an hour, to ask the question, what new languages can I learn? Because those new languages give you new choice. I'm a big believer that diversity and inclusion is not just important for social justice concerns. It's to do better business, be more creative, be more impactful. And I'm hoping that the work that we're doing in Automatic around inclusivity, we're having the first all-remote design and exclusion conference on April 21st. We're bringing together people from Twitter, Airbnb, Nextdoor, Google, Facebook, online on the 21st to have more conversations about what is exclusion, what is inclusion, and how can we be a more creative society by thinking that way in the open. So thank you very much. I want to thank our panelists. All right. Thank you. Bravo. And I'd like to thank the Chief World as well. Thank you, Chief. All right. Now we go eat or something now, please.
Yes. Okay, so one fellow clap for John Maeda, who's graced us with his presence. And thank you, panelists. So on behalf of AIGA-DC, we thank all of you for coming out for this lunchtime event. We hope to see you at future events, hopefully one tonight where Mr. Maeda will take center stage in Roslyn. So there's still tickets. You can sign up. You can also follow along with the conversation on all of our social media platforms, as well as sign up for our email so you can continue to see what events that we are producing from here until the end of the year. So thank you all. Again, John Maeda will be around for a little bit before I have to whisk him back to the Chinatown area. And again, thank you.